Start our meeting here at 6. As you were seeing Shelley waving me down here, we're continuing to have some audio difficulties with the recording system. So our goal this evening is to record tonight's discussion, and then at the end of tonight's meeting, we'll upload the video, the audio to the website. Correct?
It may be tomorrow before we actually get it uploaded, but
Okay. So
we'll do what we can as soon as we can.
yeah, within 24 hours. So, again, let me open this in a word, and then I'll get Councilman Dahl to please play. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the opportunity to serve our community in this manner. I pray that you guide our discussion and decisions tonight. Lord, I pray for our state, our country, during this trial that we're currently walking through. I pray for our leaders in the state, federal level. I pray for first responders, police, and fire as they take on challenges each and every day to protect us and keep us safe. And Lord, again, I just ask you to guide us as we lead the future of our community. In Jesus' name,
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
As usual, the rules of Decorum are in effect for tonight's meeting. At this time, I'd like to open up our meeting for citizen comments, and we've had a few this evening. We'll start off in no particular order here. Ms. Walker, would you like to start us off, please?
Is this on?
This should be.
So you want me to turn?
Yeah, turn it on.
Adrian Baldwin, 1518 Lorenzo Court. So these errors by RCH or HTO services are ongoing and systematic and cannot be corrected without competency of the city leadership.
Excuse me, Adrian, could you please talk slowly for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. These errors by RCH or HTO services are ongoing and systematic and cannot be corrected without competent city leadership. The response regarding the notifications of water boiling signage is a bit archaic, and considering our current climate where people are mostly at home. So one of the expectations with your agreement with RCH is to be contacted during these types of emergencies immediately. The response of the city was poor and frustrated many citizens. It even caused a stir outside of McLendon-Chisholm about their own water service in Rockwall, Heath, and Bate. Fortunately, that was remedied through other notifications. Besides the poor communication and responding to RCH and informing the citizens through Nixle and social media pages, we still face the problem of quality control, infrastructure issues, and relying on supervision of the water resource from a third party, H2O services. They are the ones who manage the administration and repair work on behalf of the RCH board. The public, me, and countless other citizens are relying on city supervision that we can have confidence in managing such an important resource, our water. I took some time to review some statutes and our ordinances in place. There are violations that I believe the city can pursue. It's time to utilize our city attorney to resolve some infrastructure issues that will ultimately even affect those in the ETJ. I am aware that there were some complaints made to TCEQ about RCH's water pressure. It would be a good idea to pursue a third party that is unbiased to do an investigation to review all the components of the contract expectations to meet TCEQ state standards. We need a city contractor that can review the data to report to the city council of these findings. There may be things that we are not aware of yet, but we need action from the city council to send a city representative to acquire this information to provide to our city attorney to review contract modifications with RCH. Typically, this is done by a city engineer. However, I do not support the current hire back of the previous city engineer to be involved at any capacity. Also, I wanted to review how important, again, to hire a qualified city engineer and city planner. Let me read you something from the city ordinances, which, by the way, was adopted back in 2007. Modeling analysis requirements. A water distribution modeling analysis shall be performed by the applicable water supplier and submitted to the city engineer for review and approval prior to the submittal of the final plat. In addition, once the fire hydrants are installed and pressurized, an independent testing laboratory shall field verify the residual pressure and flow required per the International Fire Code as adopted by the city. The test results shall be submitted to the city engineer for review and comment as part of the plat review process. All subdivisions within the city and the city's ETJ shall require a water distribution modeling analysis from the applicable water supplier's engineer demonstrating the water supplier's ability to provide water in sufficient volume and pressure for domestic use and fire protection. The modeling analysis must, at a minimum, depict adequate proposed subdivision's normal water demand in addition to providing model runs of 2-hour fire flow and demonstrating how this will affect the operation and performance of the existing water distribution system. The modeling analysis shall be submitted concurrently with an engineering plan review to the city engineer for review and approval. So our city administrator, failed to utilize a qualified engineer a year ago and hired Black W. Frey, who has serviced us for quite a number of years. There was pipe that had an increase in size a few years ago. Other infrastructure items were ignored that should have been installed down the road towards the ETJ. Why? If you know that there were problems with water pressure, why is there no improvement? Who is responsible for making sure that these things are done? I apologize, I had to slow down a little bit. So, who is checking on the fire hydrants? There's a number of questions, but at the end of the day, the city council needs to step up and verify all these aspects of this. It starts with an investigation with a third party. I would prefer it to be done by a new engineer and city planner, include Chief Simmons, or have the city attorney involved in collection of this information. Something must be done. So I find it very odd that all the things that y'all are working on with NYU, with Terrell, is a little bit, it's out of place a little bit because not that many citizens know about it. And I think it needs to be kind of out there to let people know that these things are happening and there's not a comprehensive plan that's being, it's just a little bit backward. And I think that we kind of need to have like a meeting before we go into any type of discussion with them, and considering what we're going through with RCH and the current problems. And I think that it would be premature to just jump in without resolving this issue with RCH. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Day? Paul Day.
Hey, everybody. How long is my time limit?
5 minutes, sir.
5 minutes. I should stay within that pretty quickly. The last time I was actually, before you guys talked about rules of decorum, we talked about Robert's rules, and I applaud you guys for the way that you guys handled that. I mean, everybody handled that great. I think that having a little history lesson on Robert's rules is kind of a big deal. But I wanted to bring up another rule of decorum today. There's 2 items that I wanted to bring up. The first one is going to be HB 2840. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this act. It's a revision to the Texas Open Meetings Act that went active September 1st of 2019. I'd like to read it to you. This is section, sorry, I don't have my glasses on. I left them in the truck, so take me a minute. When you get over 40, it takes a minute for your eyes to kind of get it. Section 551.007B. It says, a governmental body shall allow each member of the public who desires to address the body regarding an item on an agenda for an open meeting of the body to address the body regarding the item at the meeting before, as in what we're doing right now, or during the body's consideration of the item. That was passed almost unanimously by both houses of the Texas legislature. It was, in fact, a unanimous vote on the Senate, and I think there were 3 dissent votes in the House. The author actually gave a couple of very good discussions about the intent of the law, and basically what it says is it allows the citizens, it's now considered a right of the citizens of Texas to be able to come on any agenda item before an action is taken by this body or a school board or a college board or whatever it is, if you're governmental, to be able to come in and say, I'd like to give my 2 cents before a final vote is taken. So if there's a second and there's a motion, then after you guys have the debate, or maybe even before, I'm not exactly sure, that's probably open to interpretation, but that would be something that you guys should open up the floor to. Does anybody in the room have any comment? And so I wanted to go ahead and submit these as items, as exhibits for the minutes for next time. Are you the attorney? You're the city attorney. Can I submit this to you?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you. That's for your reference. Thank you. So just kind of building on the whole decorum thing. It's nice to get to talk. More brains working on a problem solves a lot more problems. The other issue that I wanted to bring up was, by the way, what's my time?
You got 2.5 minutes left.
Okay, I'll keep it very brief then. I do hope that I'll be allowed to exercise that right when agenda item 6.2 comes up, where we talk about the Terrell issue for the MOU. I've been reviewing the MOU. I'm not all the way through it. There's a lot of technical stuff in here. My background is I'm a water scientist. I'm a geologist, but my expertise is water science. So I've been doing stuff for a long time. And there's some good stuff in here, and there's some bad stuff in here. And I think that one of the things you guys should do before you vote on this is take some time to go through this very carefully. Because it's not just a MOU in the standard sense of we don't like it, we just dissolve it. You are ceding governmental power to each other through an MOU, which is something that is kind of dicey when you get into the nitty-gritty of how who's getting control of this, and who might be maybe putting together some type of water policy for new subdivisions or whatnot. That language is in here. So I think that you should be a little, slower to rush this through. Take your time. I would advocate a no vote. That doesn't mean don't if it's forced to a vote. That doesn't mean I'm opposed to it. What I'm saying is take your time, figure out what it is that you're voting on, because there's definitely some action in here that you might want to retain those power prizes and see them over. And same thing with Terrell too. You don't want to be inheriting their disease, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing this as carefully as possible. And like I said, I'm only halfway through, but even if I was in your position, I would say, well, hold on. I'm a no until we can fix some of these problems. Okay? I'm not saying there isn't good stuff. I'm sure I'm out of time, but thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Paul. Ms. Joe Wright.
Jody Wright, 1513 Barola Drive. I wanted to take a minute and we really want to recognize Council Member Woessner for stepping up at a time as a lot of information was coming at us from RCH, and there was a lot of misinformation, I think, as well as a lot of just information, and trying to filter through that and get to answers really quickly. I also know that Councilmember Kippett and Hodges also were part of that, and I just want to thank each of you. I think at this critical time, leadership in our city is so important, and our citizens need to know that the leaders who are representing us always have our best interest, our safety, and our security as their number one agenda item, and I think that you really represented that. So with that, I also know that RCH is not a department of our city. It is not on our payroll. They are a supplier for all of us. I think the majority of us that are in this room that are serviced by RCH. And what I would really appeal to this city council to do is to ask the RCH board to come in front of this council and to talk to us a little bit about what is going on, what are their plans. We've heard that there have been some breakdowns over the years, that there's been some missteps. I will say I felt that their communication was significantly lacking. There are many avenues to contact citizens. And to utilize the singular method they utilized, I don't think was necessarily the best solution for them. But they might need to hear that from the citizens. I haven't received any questionnaires from them. I've never received a call from them asking, hey, how are we doing? What could we do better? And this again, in the spirit of transparency that we're all craving and that so many of you demonstrated in getting those answers quickly and passing those on to us, I think it would just be phenomenal for them to step up. And whether it was an open citizen discussion or whether the council could receive questions from the citizens in advance and ask those. Again, I'm not sure what all of the decorum allows with that, but I think this is the opportunity to think out of the box. It's 2020. Nothing's gone normal. Why should it continue? Let's think innovatively and let's think of ways for us to connect differently, authentically, and uniquely with the citizens that are here to support each of you. So, thank you.
Thank you. Val?
Valerie Modart, 402 Cattle Bear Drive. Well, this is going to seem very redundant. Along with Jody Wright, I want to commend the council for the response on social media to the questions about the boil order from RCH Water. Even though answers have not been readily available, partly due to the holiday weekend, it was very nice to see y'all did your best with what you had. All of y'all that I saw. I scanned everything during that craziness weekend. It does concern me that RCH Water has no efficient way to issue boil orders so that every citizen can be notified in a timely manner and not be reliant on word of mouth. This is pretty much coming from the HOA president and me, because I'm like, what do I do with door to door? Thank goodness for social media in this case, even though it is still not an effective mechanism for notification of serious issues. On another note, I want to urge you all to be careful when considering the possibility of the city getting into the water business with Terrell. Nothing against Terrell. My concern would be to the cost of the city, of the infrastructure and the staff necessary to run the operation. More city means more government, and that means higher taxes. And I'll just throw a little word in there about the comprehensive plan not being updated yet. And the warning about moving ahead with our plans for doing two things at the same time when we really should have the comprehensive plan in stone first. Thank you.
Mr. Stein?
Can you give me a minute?
Yeah. You mean, go ahead and go to the next one?
Please.
Sure. Okay. Lance?
Lance AG, 1509 via Toscana. I want to thank each of you for letting me speak. Obviously, I'm here because of the water. In 2014, I sent Nathan an email. Hey, what's the situation with McLendon-Chisholm? Thinking about looking at some property out there. We're now several years down the road and we still have this. We fought battles, we sit in our garages, making videos, we do all this crazy stuff in this city instead of focusing on the things that are dire importance. And water. We live in a community of homes that are 300,000 well over $1 million, and we're boiling our water. It's not all your fault, it's some of the past people's fault as well. So let's just make sure that's very clear. I want to thank you for looking at Terrell for the water. Use your wisdom if you want to enter into something with them. I do recommend that you do place a building moratorium, and the citizens overwhelmingly, based off the polling, like that. We need to work with Dennis Bailey and the county commissioners and Judge Sweet for the unincorporated area, even that was given away. Putting a building moratorium in place or a freeze point will allow RCH, which isn't a part of the city, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to look forward to what you need to do to, to correct its action, or it gives you time to help solve that problem, or work with other entities to solve the water issues. Which kind of goes back a few months ago when I spoke about receiving $4 million plus for a fire department. I think you now see the reality of why overspending on something instead of reserving some of those funds for emergency situations makes sense. Spending $4 million on a fire department when you can't pump water out of the hydrant, really, it's kind of stupid. We just need to put that moratorium in place. Let's pause. Let's give these guys an opportunity to get the old boys over there to get an opportunity to get their act together. But they've had plenty of time at this point in time. There shouldn't be a free passage for those clowns at this point in time. I hope you'll listen, because I've come many times over the years and spoke to many people. A lot of them don't sit there anymore because they didn't listen. So I hope that you will take what I'm saying and what the citizens want, which is the moratorium for 90 to 120 days on building. You can continue the construction, but you got to stop at some very. You can't pump water to people that need it today, and you can't supply it to the people who need it tomorrow. So just use your wisdom. I'm sorry that the mayor's not here, but I think that would be a wise move on your part to postpone that and to use some of that $2 million that I originally spoke about and apply that to looking at setting it aside for future infrastructure for a community that is going to grow, and with the expansion of 205 will continue to grow. Whether people want it or not, it's coming. So good luck. Tough decisions. Thank you.
Good evening, Robert Steindick, 304 Fiscal Year Drive. I also want to agree with Mrs. Wright. I think that she made a good point about asking RCH Water Board to come before this council. Something we tried to do before. They've never done it. And I find it interesting that at least as the last time I checked, the former chair of the Water Board, Jack Pullen, was a former member of council. This is a real sticky wicket. I realize that there's a lot of things that seem right about creating our own water department. And there's a lot of arguments that can be made that sound reasonable. But when you start looking at the numbers, which I've been doing and will be doing a show on, when we start looking at the numbers about what that's going to cost, for instance, you guys are considering putting a septic line along 205, right? And think about the cost of that. Add to that, you're considering taking back that 4,000 acres. That 4,000 acres would be our Portland project, which will make Sonoma Verde look like a nothing in comparison. Of course, the man property. That's another reason why you're looking at water, because it enables you, having water enables you to control what's being built. I get that, I do. But what is the cost? When someone was here to talk about that, what they say, cost per tap, how many taps were there? $3,000, I think, per tap was the cost, and there were 1,000 taps at that time. That's $3 million. So not just that, but then we're looking at what is RCH saying? They've got to put in a bigger pipe now. What's the cost of that? There's a lot of things going on. What troubles me more than anything is not that I think you guys are being reckless, because I don't. I think you're asking some good questions. Problem is, you have given the responsibility of the study to basically a company whose job it is to make these things happen. What kind of response do you think they're going to give you? Do you think they're going to come back and say, yeah, you shouldn't do that? That, of course not. They're going to say, here's all the reasons why you should. And this is why it's so important, in my opinion, that you have furtive discussion and debate. And it be open and transparent. It's troubled me over the last many months to see this council go from being incredibly transparent, Of course, I was criticized as mayor for having long meetings till 2 in the morning. But those meetings were not behind closed doors. Those meetings were out in public. The last meeting you had, you spent over an hour behind closed doors, and based on what I'm seeing in this agenda, you're going to be spending a lot more time discussing and deliberating. Then you come out and you make it and you vote. I'm just saying it looks bad. The optics of it is not good. I don't know how it's legal for you to go back there and have discussion and deliberation behind closed doors when it should be out in the open. I'm just encouraging you to consider that. The MOU, I agree that the MOU, several people have talked about that, and there are so many problems with it that what really troubles me is no questions were really asked. Bottom line, if you move forward with creating the water district, you've basically turned the key forever. We can't turn back. And basically, what I'll say to that is, of course, I've been a big critic, and I realize I have 1 minute and watch my time. I've been a big critic of former Mayor Donegan for approving Sonoma Verde and Triple Creek on the very same night without the knowledge or consent of citizens, violating our 1.5 acre minimum per home site standards. If you're going to do that, if you want to bring DR Horton into the city, you want to bring the Mann property into the city, before you do that, you need to change the ordinance of 1.5 acre minimum per home site standard. I'm just saying, isn't that the right thing to do for integrity's sake, so that the citizens can know exactly what you're doing? I'm troubled by what I'm saying. Finally, I told you that I would be doing a show on all the fire calls. Well, and I also told you that I'd be doing that I had 7 years of data. I actually have 8. So I will be doing that show, and I hope that show is helpful to you, and I'll try to get you copies of the information that I present. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, so at this point, I will close citizen comments for the evening. Next item on the agenda, we will discuss approval of the minutes for the August 25th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 8/25/20 city council meeting minutes as written.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Unanimous approval of minutes as written. Item number 6.1, we'll open it up for a public hearing to receive input regarding the proposed annual budget for fiscal year starting October 1, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2021. So at this point, we'll open it back up for any citizen comments regarding the budget. And again, please keep those comments focused on the budget and items within the budget.
Wasn't there supposed to be like a written sheet for that? You don't have any written sheets?
No.
No, ma'am.
You just need it.
Yeah. Yeah, so at 7 o'clock, we'll open the public hearing for any comments. We'll let it run for a few minutes here. And again, you guys will still stick with 5 minutes.
Again, Lance AG, 1509 via Toscana. In regards to the budget, looking over it today, looks like they're holding the rates the same, which is wise. There will be continued growth here, so there's no reason to raise taxes. Sales or property-wise. I do have a concern in regards to the budget, in regards to spending the funds that were provided by the state of Texas for the fire station. That's been a sticking point for many years in this town, and I would advise you to continue under the budget to look at using those funds. Look at using those funds wisely to address certain things. Again, I would also advise you into looking at the cost and the amount of money that's being spent on certain positions and making sure you're getting that money back out of those positions. It's a small town. Personally, I think like most people think, we should probably go back to the county because it's a heck of a lot cheaper. So just use our money wisely and it's not wasted. And thank you again for trying to keep those rates the same as last year without raising them. Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, good evening. Is that okay? My only issue with the budget is this: what is the plan? What is the long-term plan? We've expanded the size of government exponentially because of the fire department. That's the issue that I'm struggling with as a conservative, because I don't understand where we're going. Now, Lauren, I've heard you say, when we become home rule. I get that the mindset of the council is that eventually we're going to become home rule, and possibly after this census we'll have 5,000 people to do that. Just so you know, I'm going to campaign hard against home rule because I know home rule means bigger government, and there's no other way around that. There are cities that are 20,000 plus that are home that are type A general law type A cities like ours. And I hope that we stay that way. We can stay lean and mean, and we can do everything that we need to do. But the problem is, I just don't understand what your plan is, and I'm wondering, is that going to be part of you're talking about doing a workshop? Is that what you're going to be talking about during that workshop? And what is so that we can kind of know what the direction that we're heading. Obviously, a lot has happened. We've got a lot of money that just came in. We've got a new fire department. We've given pay raises to the staff. We've given the benefit. The benefits are unlike any other that I've seen. And so it's a great place to work in McLendon-Chisholm. I'm just trying to understand, as a citizen and taxpayer, what is it? What's the next step, and what's the next shoe to drop? Thank you.
Hey, Robert. Any other comments? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this evening at 7:04. So item 6.2, discussion and action regarding consideration and ordinance approving the proposed budget for fiscal year starting October 1, 2020 and ending September 30th. Is that 2021, isn't it? It says 2020.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to postpone the adoption of the budget to September 22nd, 2020.
Okay. Have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do want to discuss just a few things so the public is aware of some of the initiatives that we've put into this budget, and I think it's something that we've heard today over and over. Lisa put together some slides, but I'm just going to jump to the one that talks about our 2020-2021 new initiatives. Top of the list is the comprehensive plan update. We felt that that's been needed. I think it's 2016 is the date of the last one, so we're looking at a 5-year plan, which I think it's great. We're going to get that going now so we can determine where our city's going. In addition, the Economic Development Committee is in place now and will be starting work next week. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire, and the comprehensive plan is the first step. As Mr. Steigenhagen reported, we have increased our employee benefits package. It's not the Taj Mahal, however, it is what many cities have adopted for their employees, and I think it will keep our city competitive as far as hiring new personnel if need be, and just give our employees the benefits that they deserve as far as their retirement goes. As you know, a few weeks ago, we opted to go into the animal control services. We have seen this as a benefit that our citizens have asked for 3 or 4 years now. We're going to continue, we're going to fund that. One other thing that we're doing as a part-time code enforcement officer, there are a lot of, we have a lot of work to do in that area, and I think that this is something that the public needs to know that we're funding. Our website's going to get redesigned, and finally, one of the most important things is we're going to get this chamber up into the 21st century with the electronics package, audio-visual equipment. So there are a lot of things in the budget that you'll see that we're trying to stick to. Our goal is to obviously max tax rate of 15 cents on the dollar. I think that we're trying to give our citizens something with this budget, and I just wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to explain that tonight. But I do think we need to have one final scrub. And I have one other thing on that. I was recently appointed as the Emergency Management Corporation's representative for the city with the county. And I wanted for you all to go to line item in the budget number 43030. It's called EMS. And it's really minor, but I just haven't had a chance to talk to the council about it. You'll see an increase, the total budget for 2021 is $5,454. I wanted to break that out for you. There's $575, which is the annual audit that Rockwall County goes through for the EMS budget. That's our fair share. And the remainder, the $48.78, is McLendon-Chisholm's share for the EMS budget overall for FY21. And I thought it was important for the public to understand that the way the EMS budget is done is the county picks up half the tab, and then the rest of the cities pick up the other 50%, and it's based on that city's population. So we pay 4.3% of that remaining 50%.
What line item is that?
43030. And I just wanted to let the council know that that's what's going on with that. And that's all I can have about that.
Thank you, Lloyd.
That was my discussion.
Thank you. Other comments? Good. Okay.
We're going to make a motion to postpone the adoption of the budget until September 22nd.
So all those in favor of postponing the budget approval to September 22nd, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that passed unanimously. So item 6.3, discussion and action regarding ordinance approving and updating the master fee schedule effective October 1, 2020. Lisa, do you have any comments on this?
I think Michael Holly would prefer you word it just a little bit differently.
If you just say table instead of postpone,
Oh, sorry.
that's more.
Oh, I thought table meant you push it off till the next.
It is.
So later
It's
in
more
the
of a
agenda.
technical compliance. If you really need, it's just a preference. That's all. If you just
Okay.
be
Can we
indulged.
restate it? Can we restate it?
She can. It's
Okay.
the same
I'd
one.
like to make a motion to table the adoption of the proposed budget for FY21 until September 22nd, 2020 council meeting.
Can we get a second? All those in favor?
Uh,
Aye. So the vote is unanimous.
Point of order. I think, I don't know if you want to do this, but I think we should, we should have a motion to postpone the budget until September 22nd.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So
Just so you know, tabling means to delay to later in the current meeting. Postpone means to postpone to a later meeting under Robert's rules. If you're going to be tabled.
Okay.
Thank you.
Am I correct?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rory.
Either way, we covered it.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, so back to item 6.3.
Either way, even if I'm incorrect, we're still good.
We're covering it, right?
Just want to make sure we're
Delayed. Thank you. Discussion and action regarding an ordinance approving and updating the master fee schedule effective 10/1/2020. Lisa, if you'll cover that for us.
Yes, a second here. What you have in your packet are all the changes that we previously discussed, and I've highlighted those. They include minor changes to the plumbing and electrical permits, a slight increase to the sewer monthly fee, a new solicitor's permit fee, a decrease to the swimming pool permit fees, and fire permit fees are added, and animal control related fees are added to this. And these would be effective October 1. So we'd like to go ahead and ask for you to approve them now effective October 1 so we can give the public notice that these will be going into effect, and so that Infomart can give their customers notice of the change for the sewer rates.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance updating the master fee schedule effective October 1st, 2020.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Lisa, I just have one question regarding the sewer rate. That's per our long-term plan, correct?
Yes, it's according to the utility rate study that we did just over a year ago, and we're pretty much right in line with what that study showed. So we haven't seen any major variances from what that study has showed. So we're going to, instead of redoing the study, we're going to kind of stick with it. We're going to monitor it, and if we see some major ups and downs as far as increases in usage or decrease or increases in North Texas fees or Rockwall fees, and we can relook at that.
Okay.
But for right now, we think we're pretty much on target as far as where we need to be with the fees.
Any other questions? All those in favor of approving the ordinance to approve the master fee schedule as stated?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item 6.4. Discussion and action regarding setting a date for a future town hall meeting, topics for said meeting and related matters. Councilman, I'll let you take this.
I think because we have had some issues throughout, with water and with questions that have been coming up, I think it would be beneficial that if we could do some type of a town hall, we could possibly just limit it to a few issues that I'm aware of and that anybody else is aware of. And maybe get that out there and give the citizens a chance to voice their opinions, and we can come up with a better plan.
Is this something that, do we want to open it up to citizen input as far as topics for that meeting? Emailing one of us and saying, okay, these are the 4 most popular meeting topics that we need, that we want to discuss, that citizens want us to review and discuss.
Right.
That's a very good idea, because what we think of the topic may not be.
May not be. It's up to you guys. I mean, I just feel like we need some correspondence with, I just think that we need to understand what is being asked. We're doing a lot lot of things here, and very few people are showing up, you know, because we don't know if we're doing it right or not, but I would like to know what some of the citizens have to say, you know, what are their concerns? You know, especially now with the water thing, I know that's a big concern,
Right.
you know, but things that we can actually control. You know, I would like to have like a town hall. I just think it's time. We haven't had one in.
I don't know if it's good to have a town hall that focuses on one subject, such as a town hall when we lay out the fire department plan kind of thing, or if we do it just a generic one. I mean, town halls are not designed to determine policy, obviously. It's a place where we listen and just provide our feedback.
But I personally would like to limit it to maybe 3 or 4 specific items, because I think that it can get out of control and it goes, we may have, you know, I just think that if we start off with that, how's that sound? Let's start off with one that just has, you know, specific.
Here's a question: do we want to do it here with COVID, or do we want to do a Zoom town hall? Which, again, we don't know. I have no idea how to do that.
Well, with our equipment, I'm not sure we can.
Yeah.
That's a fair
We
point.
can't even microphones to work with
Yeah.
them all on Zoom.
So I'm not real sure about that. But I mean, I just
I just think it would we'd have more folks in.
I'm
perhaps.
just saying, I'm not, well, right, but I'm just saying, I just think it's an idea, I would like to see it on our calendar. And I, you know, that's up to you guys when you think that it would be good, and when you think.
I mean, maybe we can post it, as a Zoom and people can watch, but I mean, 'cause I know Zoom you could do as like a one-way where people can just log in to Zoom and watch, but there won't be the interaction. You know, so that would be
That'd be difficult.
halfway.
I just think it's a.
Well, perhaps then, I think, brainstorming it, you do call for, you know, topics, and then go with the top 4 topics, and then we schedule the date.
Yeah.
So give a couple weeks for people to provide topics, and then schedule it out for November.
So why don't we ask at this point, we ask citizens to, Lisa, can we ask them to email you those topics?
I would have them email Shelley preferably, but if they email them to me, I'll forward them to Shelley.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we ask, kind of put it in a 14-day window of anybody that has concerns that want to be discussed in a town hall format to email Shelley, and those would be items that we would discuss and kind of hash out in that more open type forum. Do we want to talk days at this point without?
What if we try to get, within the 2 weeks, get the topics, and then we will all, within that time, find a date, or do you want to put a date out now?
No, I would think that you need to work with Lisa. Pick a date.
Yeah.
Is that okay to say?
Okay.
Let's just make sure that we get the topic requests, put a notice on our website as well as through the city's social media page as well.
Right.
Try to maximize the exposure.
Just real fast, are you planning on all of council being at the town hall meeting?
Yes.
I would suggest, so if the purpose of the town hall meeting is to have a discussion back and forth with the citizens, which is fine, I would suggest issuing the town hall and just having a special call meeting with the discussion between council and the public, and then you've got all the items that show up. My concern is typically, generally, normally in a town hall meeting, it's 1 or 2 council members, but not a quorum. It's more of an open discussion about kind of anything. So I like the idea of topics, putting it on there as a discussion with members of the public and council. As they call a special meeting, you're not going to have to worry about quorum, you're not going to have to worry about Open Meetings Act violation, but it gets everything accomplished that y'all want. The citizens that give you the topics.
So we can still have the interaction with.
Because we're going to put it on the agenda, discussion, interaction, however we put it, with citizens and council on the following topics, and then we'll list them. Now, you can't deviate from those topics, but if you're going to have a quorum there, I think that's the best way. You're not going to be in violation of the Open Meetings Act, so that's what I suggested.
Okay.
Well, I'm just throwing this out there, so would everybody be in agreement to doing that? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have to work on the calendar to, yeah.
well, it may be in November.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm just throwing it out.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. So at this point, really, at least that's our only course of action, is to email Shelley, have citizens email Shelley, any talking points that want to be reviewed at that meeting, correct?
Yes, general topics is fine, and that's city secretary at McLendon-Chisholm.com.
Okay.
So would you like Trudy to write up the blurb for the Facebook page and the website?
Sure.
Trudy, will you do that?
Sure.
Okay, item 6.6, discussion and action regarding approval of an all-inclusive budget for the fire station / public safety building project.
Lisa,
You missed 6.5.
we skipped one.
Oh,
6.5.
Sorry, item 6.5 is discussion and action regarding setting a date for the city council work session, retreat, and topics for said retreat, requested by Ordinance.
I know I put this on the agenda just because I know we're going to have a new city council member for sure after November 3rd, and I thought it would be great to get everybody on the same sheet of music as soon as possible. I had originally thought the 17th of November, but after talking with Lisa, it seems like we better do it right at the beginning of January because we only have one meeting now and plus the special meeting in November, and then December we usually only have one meeting. But I had suggested more generic, this is how the city council staff works. And from my point of view, like how do you prepare for an agenda, how to read the budget. This is the roles and responsibilities of the VOA, PMC, the EDC, and the support staff. And then explain the differences between ETJ, the unincorporated area, fire district, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't sure what your take was going to be on the offsite, and I wasn't sure what the mayor or anybody else was going to say. So I just said, but that was my idea.
Well, I'm taking back from, I came into office, and it just helped to have kind of like a, municipality 101, just kind of don't have to sit there for hours and listen to somebody just tell us the short story of what some of the questions we have are. I think that would help tremendously with the new person coming in, that type of thing. So I just think it would hurt.
So do you have any, I think it's a good idea, who do you have in mind as far as who would coordinate, like, who would be teaching that? You know what I'm saying? Who would be leading that discussion?
Well, I'm more than happy to put it together. If you were happy with the format that we did a year and a half or so ago, when some of you came into office, we can kind of go with that. If you have some other ideas or some feedback from that, I'm happy to take that feedback and we can change it up a bit. If I remember correctly with that, I kind of did a general overview of kind of how cities work, specific to kind of our general law type size city, and I had our consultants come in and introduce themselves and kind of explain how the pit administrator works and what she does, and our engineer come in and our planner come in, and Infomart came in, I think, or maybe they were the other company back then, but each of them kind of came in and gave a little bit of an overview of how they work with us. I went over, I think, a little bit of what I do, and I'm sure Chief was there and talked about what he did. And we talked about budget. I think the accountant came. We talked a little bit about finances. But we can include whatever topics you'd like, anything that you feel like you need to know more of, anything that you feel in hindsight as a new official that would be beneficial to somebody new coming in.
I think it would just help.
Mhm.
And for clarification, you're talking about the entire council being there, right?
The entire council.
Yeah.
I just think that would help.
Were you thinking of doing it here, kind of in the round table session like we did before?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I mean, I thought that was fine. I think
one day too much, do you think? Or, I mean, would you'd rather do like 2 half days, or was one day too much?
Well, I think that if we can make it on one day, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Right. So how do you, with something like that, how do we hold that type of meeting without violating the open
I think you
meetings
just
act?
set it up as a work session,
Okay.
a single day work
Okay,
session.
it'll be open to it.
Okay.
And I think covering key initiatives that are going on currently with, broken down into 6 to 12 months, 12 to 18, 18 to 24 months, and then, out in the next, couple of years, that kind of thing. Just to get everybody starting the new year off on the same page.
Well, I think planning it now is smart, so that gives us plenty of time to prepare for it if you want to do it in early January.
Yeah. I think that's good.
Sounds good.
You want to pick a specific date at this point, or do we just want to shoot for early January?
I have the 5th of January, but
I need to have that date. Is that a Saturday?
no, I think it's a,
Well, I leave for vacation, but I will be back by that time. So, want to make sure before I,
the 5th of January is a Tuesday, not a council meeting day. But I am flexible on the date, I just picked that as a Tuesday.
I don't see a problem with that.
The folks, but the guys that work may have problems with that.
But I'm good with it, so. just-
So it would almost be like Mayor Short and Councilmember Hodges and Mr. Dahl, Councilmember Dahl will look at the dates as far as your calendar is out. And the new person, my calendar is fairly flexible.
I mean, for me, that noon week is kind of tough.
Because it's first week back.
Right. I mean, at that point, I'd probably prefer a Saturday.
Like the 9th?
If everybody else's travel schedule allows for that, litigation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So why don't we, Lisa, why don't you, Councilman Dahl, are you okay with that day? Okay. So why don't we bounce that date off, Mayor Short, and
Okay.
then, we'll kind of plan from there.
Okay.
That's not anything we need to vote on, correct? On that day.
Well, I wouldn't now, because right now you're not totally sure if it work.
Okay, so now back to item 6.6. Discussion and action regarding approval of an all-inclusive budget for the fire station / public safety building project, requested by Ryan Osborne.
Good evening, council. Whoops, sorry about that. Yes, so appreciate y'all having us back here tonight to discuss the progress that we've made since the last city council meeting. So it's been a whirlwind of activity, as y'all may have seen. A lot of correspondence flying around. So what we're asking for tonight, as we talked about at the last meeting, as part of the process, we like to establish an all-in budget early on, and that really sets the parameters moving forward. It ensures you that we're not flying blind and that we have, constraints that we're committed to staying within. So with that, after the last meeting, we visited quite extensively with Speed Fab Creek. What you have there in front of you as far as budget is concerned, the all-in budget now that we have brought back to City Council, the last meeting, we were sitting right about that $4.5 million mark, which was what TxDOT had committed to the city. So we were sitting right at that number. Today, we've come back to you, and we have brought that number down to just over 4.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest that maybe we might want to skip down to executive session 7.1 before we get too deep into this one and come back to it after we visit with 7.1 and 7.2. and maybe come back to this one.
Okay.
Unless Ryan has
No, I think
another idea.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think, the overall number I presented to you, but if you really want to dive into what makes up that overall budget, we can hold that off for closed session.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead and do that?
You can come back out with a number following it. I think you're just going to want to talk about that first.
Okay, so discuss, and then come back out and then address item 6.6. Okay. So why don't we, it's 7:32. I'm going to call us into recess, into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551-0712, consultation with the attorney to seek advice about a matter, and with this duty of the attorney to the city council under Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the state law of Texas, very conflict with the Texas Open Meetings Act regarding the fire station, public safety building project scope, services, budget, and related matters.
Also, 6-7, sir.
If you'll go ahead and read 7.2 as well.
Or 7.
Oh, gotcha, okay. And we'll also go into executive session for item 7.2, in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551-07 to seek advice on a matter which is the duty of the attorney to the government body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the state bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding consideration of entering into a contract with Factory Corporation for design and construction services for the McLendon-Chisholm Fire Station Public Safety Building Project. And it's now 7:33. So now, going to back to item 6.7, discussion and action regarding consideration of entering into a contract with Speed Factory Corporation for design and construction services for the city of Houston Fire Station and public safety building project.
Did we want to go to 6.6 first or
So we're talking about 6.7 first.
6.7? Okay.
So we're going to go on 6, the contract with Speed Factory.
Yes, so on 6.7, so what we're asking for tonight is council approval to move forward with a stipulated sum contract in the amount of $3.615 million. This is down about $350,000 from the previous budgetary numbers that were run. And so Speed Factory, we've been working with them the past couple of weeks. They've really stepped up to help us find ways to make this building more efficient and more friendly to the local environment here. So just to give you a heads up where that stands, that puts them at about $314 a square foot just for the hard construction cost. That is for y'all's information. I went back and looked at 10 other stations that we're currently managing. That is far and away less costly than any of the other 10 stations that we're currently managing. They range anywhere from $337 a square foot, construction only, all the way up to about $425 a square foot when you account for inflation. And so at $314, I think you're getting a very cost-efficient building. So that's what we're asking for approval tonight on the Speed Fab contract $3.615 million. So
And I feel like for you, we're sitting at this great effort. Can I get a motion to approve entering into a contract with Speed Valley Creek Corporation for design and construction for fire station and public safety?
Sure, just to get the discussion going, I'd like to make a motion to enter in contract with Speed Valley Creek Corporation for design and construction services for the McLendon-Chisholm Fire Station / Public Safety Building Project.
We have a second?
I'd like to second.
Yeah, we'll open it up for discussion now. In regards to my experiences early on talking to, I talked to a couple of different architects several months ago, even before Ryan was in this discussion in this equation. I had heard numbers price per square feet of near $500 a square foot. So the fact that we're well below that, I think that at the end of the day, obviously we as a community don't want to spend any more than we absolutely have to, but we also want to plan for future needs. We want to plan and have a structure that will be useful and stable for not only years to come, but my hope is decades to come, because frankly, I don't plan on going anywhere, so I want this structure to be sound both now and 10 years from now and 20 years from now. So those are my comments at this point.
I'm sorry, I did want to add, we do have representatives here tonight from Speed Valley Creek and also from Callahan and Freeman Architects. So they're here to answer any questions you may have specific to the design or scope that's included in that contract or not. Any of those type of questions, I'm sure that one of these fine gentlemen would be glad to stand up and answer.
So we'll accept the design build contract with Speed Valley Creek, mean that that's the design that we're going to go with for the construction, or will we have, will you and Chief Simmons and Ms. Woessner have a chance to alter the floor plan as required, as long as we stick to our basic, the way it is now, it's 11,000 square feet. So, yeah, a little under that. So we'll have, you'll have the ability to play with the errors a little bit if need be, and work on the design.
Yes, that's correct. So what you've got in your contract is a defined scope that they are contractually required, obligated to meet that defined scope. That being, the construction of the building, the different compartments of the building, the different facets of design that are going into the building. The footprint itself is going to shift and move as we get their design team on board and we start diving into the programming a little bit more. Naturally, things are going to move around a little bit and change. But there will be regular updates with council to present where we are in the design phase so that everybody is up to date on those changes as they're happening in the process.
And I want to confirm with Chief Simmons and with you that the 3-bay is what we believe will get us into the next couple of decades.
I do, yes, ma'am, and thinking forward.
And that will house more than 3 trucks.
Correct. The way the bays would be designed when we get to that would be, they're 80-foot bays, so we had 2 of our engine 42 engines down there. We could put those in back to back. So EMS comes in, once this thing's built, they decide to have a 12-hour box there or a 24-hour box, they would have a bay that they would be able to park in and keep their apparatus out of the weather and all that. We still would have room to put everything that we own there.
And maybe if you could discuss the benefits of having propane in the heating and in the generator.
Yes, so a good catch in the scope, we did have propane spelled out for the generator. And in our experience, and maybe y'all can speak to this as well, in our experience, a propane generator is much more reliable and less maintenance. When you have the option would be a diesel generator. when you have a diesel generator, then you're having to maintain the fuel, the quality of the fuel that's in the generator. Water gets in there, you have to drain it. It may or may not fire when you need it because the fuel could be contaminated. When you have propane on site and your propane, once you get that propane tank full, it's pretty much maintenance free, and they're very reliable for starting. Would y'all?
No, you said it right.
Yeah, you're right.
And if you could speak to the, there's been some discussion about an open bay barracks versus an individual dorm room. If you could talk about that a little bit, why, how that works in other stations.
Sure, absolutely. Please introduce yourself.
Okay. Ron Hamlin, President of Steve Factory. Thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight. Alan Huckabee, he's the lead architect on this project, and he can address your question on that. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Good evening. We've done quite a few fire stations over the last few years that I've been involved in, and all but one had individual rooms. The one that we had a bunk room, I'll call it, was a very, very small station that was a volunteer station, and really nobody stayed there on an ongoing basis. We found that having individual rooms for what you would be able to have is 3 shifts, so each room would be really the room for 3 different people. Gives some privacy. You're coming back from a shift or coming back from a call or whatever. It's a place that people can go, come out of the mix. So there's just a need in a facility like this to have some privacy, which is really not afforded anywhere else in the building. So for lots of reasons, it's a good thing to have the individual rooms. And we've been thinking through the rooms in this facility and how they could have some multiple uses, especially until such time that you might have a full house, so to speak. So they're being thought of as multi-purpose rooms until such time that they might need to be dorms for the full use.
Okay. Well, my understanding, what I learned about it today, I guess that's the trend now in fire stations to do those styles.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I say, we've done several stations in the last few years, and only one does not have that. And as I say, that was an anomaly. The industry standard across the board is the individual rooms. Like I say, they're not for one person; they're for 3 people. They would have lockers for 3 people, and they would be set up for shared use.
Gender sensitive too.
Ron, I'm just suggesting that I remind us all too that this allows for both men and women.
Yes.
Because if you did that with bunk rooms, you'd end up with 2 bunk rooms, and you'd probably end up using about the same amount of space as we're doing the individual rooms.
And as far as what I kind of thought of is that, sometimes they don't have the best of calls when they come back. Somebody's,
It's the mental side of
it's
it
the
as well.
mental
They
part.
just
Sometimes
process.
you just need to go, to your own little room.
Privacy is not very available in a facility like this, and so to have some place that they can go and rest, both physically and mentally.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions, Melissa?
Ryan, talk about some of the state requirements or the requirements that we have to have,
Sure. So there's about 6 NFPA codes I know that govern construction of a fire station. I'm certainly not an expert in them. I'm sure you're more of an expert than I am, but those are basically centered around the health and welfare of the first responders. So those govern everything from the necessity to have a fire sprinkler system, which is good anyway because you don't want your fire station burning down. That's a bit embarrassing. But so it ranges from the spectrum of you must have a fire sprinkler system all the way down to you must have a decontamination area where they can wash off when they get back from a call, wash off their bunker gear. Cancer is a huge issue in the fire station world among firefighters, and so the NFPA really focuses a lot on health and safety and welfare of your first responders. So everything from the exhaust system and the apparatus bays to the decon rooms to the fitness areas, those are all things that are required by NFPA to make sure that your first responders are safe and healthy and able to do their job. save lives.
One new change from the codes as of 2015 and 2018 now is you have to have a safe room. So this safe room is required and it has to have bathroom facilities tied to it. So, we're looking at that too, is this is a safe room for not only the personnel that are working, but city hall staff. If there's a council meeting going on right now and tornadoes coming through, well, this room would hold probably, when we get down to looking at it, can hold up to 60 people, just depending what you're required to have. And that's a big, thick wall. I mean, how big are the walls in a safe room?
They'll be 8 inches to 6.
So,
This withstand an EF5 tornado hit.
right. And that's required.
Brian, could you speak to a warranty, the 2-year warranty in comparison to other companies?
Yes, and by the way, you reminded me, those square footage costs I gave you earlier, comparable stations, none of those included stations. Those are very expensive, so I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm sorry.
The warranty.
Oh, yes, the warranty. That was also a great thing, Speed Fab Creek. They offer a 2-year warranty, basically bumper to bumper on the building for 2 years. That's not common in the industry at all. And so that's included in the scope as well. So, again, anything happens in the building the first 2 years, it's not going to be up to your staff chief to have to go out there and fix it, which I know a lot of firefighters are doing these days, is maintain their own stations. So the first 2 years, it's all going to fall back on their shoulders to make it right. That's a big deal.
So Ryan, does that even include like foundation issues and?
That's part of the beauty of a design build is, if something happens to the foundation of the building's moving, something's going on, it's not Speed Fab Creek pointing back at the architect and the architect pointing back at them. It all falls on them.
Okay.
So it's the design, whether it's a design issue, a construction issue, it's all covered by Speed Fab Creek. One of the big advantages to design build.
Any more questions? Ron, another question. As far as, scaling it down 2-bay versus 3-bay, can you make any comments as to the cost effectiveness of that decision?
Yeah, so we have this discussion with almost every fire station that we work on. Is usually the first thing that the owners want to get rid of is they want to say, we need to cut costs, let's cut bays off. Well, so 2 things happen when you cut bays. Bays are generally some of the cheaper square footage cost construction of the whole building because it's not conditioned, it's non-finished. So when you're cutting bays, you're not getting dollar for dollar cost per square foot cut out of the building. So you're not saving a whole lot when you cut off bays. The other thing that happens is most bays have the weight rooms or the bunker gear rooms or some of those on one side of them. If you cut off a bay and then you come to add it back later, you're not having to demolish bunker gear rooms, auxiliary areas to do that. So it may save you a little money up front, but when you do have to add bays, and you will have to add bays, then it's going to cost you 3 times as much. So in our opinion, it's never a good, efficient use of savings to try to cut bays. I'm sorry, I just want to remind you all of one thing, just for the record, so everybody is clear on this, our contract is not tied to the cost of construction. So just so everybody's clear on that, so when I'm advising you in this role, purely as your fiduciary, it doesn't bear whether the station is $5 million or $3 million, it doesn't affect what I'm telling you here. So I just wanted to remind you all that, right? Since this is your first go around with the third-party project manager.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Other comments or questions?
I can hear what you said, Will.
Is that everything I wanted to ask was already addressed?
So this time I'll ask for a motion to approve entering into a contract. No, we already did that, sorry. Ask for
Any more discussion?
what's that?
Any more discussion?
No, so ask for a motion or a vote to approve or not approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. There you go. Aye.
Show that unanimous.
Okay. Item 6.6. Discussion and action regarding approval budget for the fire station public safety building project.
All right, so as we talked about a little bit earlier, we started down the trail a little bit. So you've now got your construction contract approved, but we know that that's only a portion of the overall cost of the station. We're also going to have a number of soft costs that are associated with that construction of the station. That includes everything from plating the site, surveying fees, geotechnical materials testing, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It's going to include all those things that aren't within the bounds of the construction contract. So what we're asking for with this item is to approve an all-in budget. So what this will allow us to do as we go into construction, in construction, there's going to be things that we need to make decisions on quickly. When you approve this all-in budget, it's going to allow us to move forward with construction as long as we stay within the confines of that budget. So now we have the parameters set that we cannot exceed it for the overall budget of the station. If we do run into something that could jeopardize that overall budget, we will then have to come back to council and request additional dollars to cover whatever that may be. So with that, what I will add in here, the amount that we're asking for on the all-in budget is $4.029, $935.
Not yet.
So
and I just wanted to add one thing about this. So $4,029,935, that's the all-in budget that we're asking. So your construction costs with your soft costs are only taking up about 10%. So again, I'm going to go back to the efficiency thing. Usually, we're used to seeing soft costs being upwards of 20% on a project. So working with Chief and Lisa, we squeezed this down. I mean, we really squeezed it all the way down to about 10% soft costs.
What's the soft cost?
The soft cost is everything not construction.
Okay.
That's what we consider soft costs. So that would be, like I said, your furniture, your equipment, your utility connections, all those things that are not included in their contract. If we have to bring electrical over to the site, those sort of things.
Okay.
Surveying, geotech.
Okay, so do I have a motion to,
I'll do it. I'd like to make a motion to approve an all-inclusive budget for construction of the McLendon-Chisholm Fire Station / Public Safety Building Project of $4,029,935.
Can you make that an amount not to exceed?
Not to, oh yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Let me revise my motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve an all-inclusive budget for construction of the McLendon-Chisholm Fire Station Public Safety Buildings Project not to exceed $4,029,935.
do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Say again.
We should go through the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way it can be disclosed.
Ryan, can you take us through the McLendon-Chisholm budget snapshot? Can you take us through that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Just so the public understands.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure if that's me. Is that me?
The system's not recorded, so if you just speak loudly, sir.
Yeah.
I have no problem being loud. No worries.
Just be loud.
Yeah. So y'all don't know this about me, but I'm an auctioneer. I'm an auctioneer, so when you want anything auctioneer for your city or council, let me know. So as we walk through the budget, so now you've approved the $3.6 million for their contract. So that's the first line item you see there. As you walk through that budget, you'll see the owner FF&E allowance.
Explain that so everybody knows.
Right, the FF&E, so that's going to be the things that are not, basically anything that's not bolted down. So that's going to be things like refrigerators, microwaves, beds, nightstands, everything that's not built into the station. Everything that's not physically attached to the station. computers, telephones, all that will come out of the FSM line. And let me say one other thing about this budget. So these line items are going to shift around as we go through the process, right? The overall number will not be exceeded, but the dollars between lines will shift around. As we buy out one, if we realize savings, we'll move those to another line and vice versa. Because we're going to have, we're not going to hit all these numbers perfect. It's impossible. So the next line item down, we have an ad services in here, just in case we come up with something design-wise that we didn't think about that needs to be ad-libbed on by a third-party engineer or architect, not within SpeedFab's contract. So that's an allowance there if needed. You have our fee, of course, which you have already approved in a previous city council meeting. And then we have third-party code inspections. Since you don't have a code enforcement department here, it's a code inspection department, we use a third-party vendor. We plug in the money for them as well. You see a lot of zeros in there. All those zeros is because those were picked up in SpeedFab Green's contract, so that's why those are zeros. And we're not required. Commissioning is an example. We were carrying commissioning originally. We backed that out. That's a zero because we don't think we'll need commissioning on a building this size. And any that we do need is including the SpeedFab Green's contract. Dadgummit, why do I have such a hard time saying that? Some auctioneer, right? Yeah, tongue tied auctioneer. So beyond that, we have miscellaneous site fees item. If you look down at the bottom, that's all those miscellaneous site fees. That's going to be things like your ADA review and inspection. Again, you're required to have an ADA review done, a TDLR review done with a registered accessibility specialist. That'll come out of your pocket. The geotech, which we'll hopefully be bringing back to council in a few weeks, I think, for the geotech materials testing. Testing lab allowance. Again, you're required by state law to have a third-party testing lab that's doing the material testing, separate from SpeedFab Green. Topo survey, plating, TxDOT coordination, all these other things in here, water service and taps, electrical service, fiber foam, those are all miscellaneous site fees. And so we have a line item for that. And then we have a line item for contingency. We'd be foolish not to have a budget with a contingency. Anybody that's ever remodeled a kitchen or bathroom knows you're going to run into something that's not expected. And so we have that in there to cover anything that we may run into that we didn't foresee. We like to think we're pretty good, but we're not going to catch everything.
So the bottom line, you said it's $314 a square foot?
I think that was what the calculation came out to per square foot in their last. Is that what it was?
Yeah, construction only.
Construction only.
Okay.
Construction
And then all in it was, I think, 335.
Yeah, about 330.
Correct. With design.
That was with design.
Mhm.
Yeah, 335.
So any other questions for Ryan this morning?
No, just so the owner FFE allowance and the owner's contingency allowance is there. However, if it's not used, it's recollectible by the city.
That's correct. There's also a contingency in their contract already to cover any construction contingency items that we may, as we go through design, we may add something to their scope, then that can come out of the construction contingency that's in their contract. If that doesn't get used, that would come back to the city also.
What else you guys?
Now, all these items that say, for example, testing lab allowance, total survey, boundary survey allowance, those aren't finite numbers, those are just allocations, just in case they go to that point.
That's correct. So you'll notice on that budget spreadsheet, I had a few line items that are highlighted. So the ones that are highlighted are the ones that we've now locked in contractually. Those are the line items that will not move for the remainder of construction. The ones that are allowances are not highlighted. Those are the ones that are floating until we get them locked in. So once we get the geotech contract, for example, if it only ends up being $3,000, then we'll change that number to 3,000 and then we'll highlight it so you know it's established and it's not going to change. So as we go through the process, you'll see more and more numbers highlighted and locked in as we get further on down the road. And the idea with this, again, is just transparency to you all. We'll be bringing you budget updates, schedule updates, design updates throughout the process. The idea is total transparency to you, so you know what did we tell you, where we're going to be, and where are we actually.
Other questions? Okay. So at this time, I'll ask for all those in favor to all those in favor to approve all-inclusive budget for the fire station / public safety building project.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item number 8, Council Member Woessner. Right, thank you, sir. And thank you, guys.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Council Member Woessner for future agenda items.
Yes.
Yours can go on the reports and announcements.
If I have a direction to the staff,
Unless it's going to be on the, if it is, then yes.
I would like to direct the staff to contact RCH, Blackland, and High Point to ensure that they have a plan of action should there be an emergency and get it in writing. Possibly meet with each of them and find out what steps they are taking to inform the citizens should an emergency happen. I'd like for you to also look into the Sonoma Verde contract to see if there's any type of information or stipulations that are required, like RCH to report to the city. Once you get all of this information, please put it on the next agenda to discuss.
Thank you. I don't have any comments at this time either. Mayor? Moving along, number 9, council reports and announcements.
I don't have anything.
I do. I have an update for the water issues. As for RCH, it is a private company, and the city of McLendon-Chisholm does not own it. But I did meet with 2 of the board members Friday, September 4th. I pointed out questions and concerns that the citizens had posted on Facebook, and I gave it to them to take back to the other board members. So they know what the concerns are. They know your concerns, they know your name. I put your name with it so that they want to contact you. Then they have that option. We talked about RCH considering updating their website and contact information, various ways to notify your customers in case of an emergency, such as Mixel, Facebook, websites, signs, contacting the HOAs and all of their websites. Contact the city to reach out via our ways of communication to the citizens. I mean, I threw everything at them. And as of Monday, September 7th, they were diligently working on these things. Water tests that they have sent in have come back with a good report. So if you do have any other questions or concerns, just contact RCH. I do have a statement from RCH. This is from them. RCH has engineering plans already in place to lay a new line. Due to the pandemic, this has slowed the process. The new line will run from north of 550 to League Road to Edwards Road to FM 548. We have acquired a new storage site at the corner of League Road and Edwards Road. RCH has hired a firm that is in the process of acquiring the last 13 easements. The last testing of water has come back safe, but we are still under the boil water requirement. So please keep limiting your outdoor watering at this time. Along with removing the boil water signs that have been placed around town, RCH will post on its website and advise the McLendon-Chisholm City Hall staff of when the boil ban is no longer in effect. The city will notify citizens via their city website and Facebook page. I'll probably put it on my Facebook page too, and maybe have some other places put it out there. But thank you for your advance and patience, and I apologize for the inconvenience. But I did. I sat there with them, and it was like a 3-hour meeting, and it was a good meeting. They just need to update. They really do, and they know that, and they are working on it. I have been in contact with them literally every day since that. And we'll see. But we have to do our part. I mean, we need water, so we got to do our part, and then, once we can get clean water and fresh water, then it's up to them to do what they're supposed to do. We did what we were supposed to do. We stopped doing the watering of the R's and whatever they asked us to do. And so now it's back on, the ball's back in their court. So it is up to them. And then we'll see. That's all we can do for now.
And I'll have a couple of comments to read. I spoke with one of the board members on Friday morning. And they said a lot of the same things that, burnt the bullying recommendation was a precautionary measure. All the tests.
Yeah. They came back fine.
They come back fine. We as a community are kind of at their mercy.
And that's the thing, is they are talking. I mean, they're at least contacting me. I get that, but I would rather have contact with them than them just go dormant and quiet and we have no clue.
Right.
So I am very thankful that they are still talking to us. And like I said, they call me every day to tell me this.
I mean, it's an interesting thing that you're saying as just a member of the public. That doesn't sound like water security to me.
Water what?
Water security. We don't have water, we're not water security. We are at the whim of a extra governmental entity that is deciding whether or not it's work for you or not. And I hear what you're saying. You guys are doing your part. I get it. What I'm saying is I think that you guys do have a role to play in creating water security, not just the quality, but quantity for people.
This item wasn't even on the agenda for discussion, so we got to be willing to definitely not talk about it.
Sorry, Paul.
I'm misunderstanding the objection.
Well, just because it's not stated on the agenda.
It's not on the
It's
agenda.
not.
This is just extra comment. She can't have a discussion.
So we can't.
Oh, okay, so you can't leave it block. You're right. Okay.
Sorry.
Can we talk after?
But again, Paul.
And I'll talk to anybody after.
To lead your discussion, I think we're on the same wavelength here that we are relying on a entity that's not part of this city.
We do value your input.
Correct.
We just can't discuss it right at the moment.
Right, I understand.
But I'm just updating you on what I have done over the weekend and what is being done and what we are in the mercy right now. So, but they are talking to me, so that's a good thing. And I will relay everything I can to you guys. I mean, literally. And I'm here too. I live and I'm boiling water just like everybody else. Not really, but, But,
Other questions or comments?
No, other than our economic development.
I'm sorry, what?
Economic development. Nathan, do you have anything?
No comments or nothing at all.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I mean, RCH has been addressed, that's an issue. And we're still looking for additional answers.
So if we don't have any further